2023 campaigns. How can we drive an issue-based campaign? To discuss that with me in the studio, I have a human rights lawyer, Inibehe Effiong. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. You look very great. I was literally telling you that I think we're twinning today.
That's nice. Thank you.
Except for those three colors on your shirt. So let's get straight into it. 34 days away, we have about 4 major runners. Some would believe 3 major candidates. And we've seen rallies, and we've seen huge number of turnouts in each of these rallies. Do numbers really matter? Numbers at rallies, do they necessarily translate to the actual electorate that would vote?
Well, thank you once again. Within the context of our politics, what we have observed over the years, every election cycle, is that the political actors, the politicians and the political parties, have essentially mastered the act of manipulating political rallies by mobilizing people, inducing people, hiring people, even engaging in interstate mobilization. A situation where someone has a rally in one state and then they will bring people from neighboring states in buses just to give some false impression that, oh, this candidate is popular. But of course, I also concede that there are people who genuinely attend these rallies on account of their belief in the candidacy of the individuals that they are supporting. But by and large, my perception, and this is basically applicable to the 2 major parties in quotes, they have over the years made it clear that the best way to get people to attend rallies is to share money. And we see videos that be on social media where people, after they have attended these rallies, they begin to quarrel, they begin to fight, they begin to argue that, oh, they have not been given what they were promised. So when you see thousands of people being galvanized, being brought into a stadium, a field, and so on, you begin to wonder whether this is really an indication of popularity or evidence of the monetization of our electoral process.
Okay. I think it's the later. I really think it's the later. Let's now talk about the candidates and how they have adopted an approach. Close to the elections now, we're seeing that they're focusing more on attacking each other as opposed to really telling the Nigerian people what they can deliver if elected. Why do you think that is? And is that effective? Demarketing another candidate, do you think it does something to the electorate that makes them favor the person that demarketed the other candidate?
To some extent, it has always been part of politics. I don't see that as evil in itself, depending on what is being deployed in the marketing. Even in the US, in the UK, and politics all across the globe, you would see candidates and parties try to demarket the other by saying why the other person is better. You would see Trump throwing tantrums all over the place, attacking Joe Biden. You will also see, Biden trying to demarcate Trump. We saw that during the election between President Trump and the Secretary Hillary Clinton. This is something that is applicable all over the world. But in the Nigerian case, what is tragic is that the greater emphasis seems to be on the personality calls. There seems to be a concerted effort to focus on the individuals. And what is being used to focus on the individuals is not basically things that should matter to the electorate. You see people resort to say, oh, this candidate is from a certain tribe, this candidate belongs to this religion, this candidate is against our religion. And they do this every election cycle because these sentiments have the capability of depriving the average voter of the capacity to independently assess the electoral value, the electoral worth, and of course the manifesto of the parties.
So you agree that is effective?
Relatively, but really what should count, given where we are as a country, should be policies argument, should be debate about issues that are plaguing the country. I was just telling you before we came on the show, your producer, the station with the traffic, that even to get to this station, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway basically is on lockdown. Why? Because fuel is not available. And this is 7 to 8 years into a government that had told us that subsidy was a scam. This is what the candidates, this is what the parties should be having conversation about. Why is it that today basic commodities are not affordable? Look at the rate of inflation, 21%. Look at the rate of, unemployment. Nothing to write home about, 32%. Youth unemployment is over 40%. And you have that in a country that is so blessed with resources. So what we expect is debate. Let the candidates come out and speak to the media. And I find it particularly, intolerable that you will even have a candidate like Asiwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is a bit allergic to talking to the press. Nigerians have the right to hear from these candidates. Nigerians have the right to interrogate them, their antecedents, their background, their educational qualifications, where they come from, what they are bringing to the table. This is the time for us to speak to them. Whether it is Atiku, whether it is Sowore, whether it is Peter Obi, and all the candidates, they must come out, including Kwankwaso, they must come out and tell Nigerians in very clear language. I know Sowore has done that remarkably. Peter Obi has also, must also give it to him, has been driving conversation about policy. Yeah. But between the other two candidates, I can't really say that they have done well in terms of driving home the message of what they want to do. So
you've stated the obvious problems, you've stated the obvious challenges. We know what these candidates are supposed to do. Just like you mentioned, the major political parties, the APC and the PDP, at least the ones that we've known for over the years, they've had power, The new parts, not new parties, the emerging parties or the parties that blew up recently because of the individual that got into it, like Labour Party and the NNPP, they've not had a chance, at having power. Right? So now that we've identified the problem, how do you think we can change the narrative and sort of, for lack of a better word, sort of force these the PDP and the APC and their candidates and every other candidate that is also demarketing other people to focus on the issues? Because also, you just made mention of the media, right? Recently on social media, you see that such strategies travel faster. Way faster. Now, even if it's not the candidates in question, their spokesperson. There was a particular video we saw, the PDP spokesperson, they remixed his video with the APC spokesperson, and they were just attacking each other, right? And such video went viral, and it's having so much impact as opposed to a video that is issue-based. So when there's a video that is issue-based, why don't people share it as much? So as much as we're focusing on the individuals and the political parties, how do you think the Nigerian people can swap that narrative and demand for better content?
It is a vital point that you have raised, but to underscore that point, you must also admit that in our politics, ideology has little or no place, right? Because when we say what are the issues, the policies, let's have arguments about policies and issues, there has to be a foundation, there has to be a basis, which is that these political parties are ideologically driven. In the US, for example, you would have the Democrats, you have the Republican Party arguing about same-sex marriage, arguing about access to voter, the ability to vote easily, arguing about immigration, arguing about inflation, arguing about loans, and so on. Because these parties are ideologically different in terms of what they represent for the various issues. But in Nigeria today, at least we have seen PDP in government, we have seen APC in government. Can we say that there is a distinction between these two parties regarding employment, regarding education, regarding health policy, regarding national integration? Even though, of course, in reality, one can see some difference in the way the Buhari government has approached the issue of national integration. But the way forward, it is for Nigerians and the media, the civil society, to insist that these candidates should address the issues that affect the electorate. But at an institutional level, I am advocating for the enactment of the Presidential Debate Act. We need a law in Nigeria, a Presidential Debate Act, that will make it compulsory for every candidate seeking to be the president of this country to participate in the debate, and for that candidate to be interrogated regarding what he wants to do. We cannot allow these people to continue to obscure the conversation, to continue to divert attention from the real issues. Look at what is happening on social media. You will now see that once the election period is closed, people begin to wipe up sentiment, they begin to pinch one tribe against the other, and this is divide and rule tactics, is what the politicians have used to hold us down. Why are we not talking about the high level of out-of-school children, the Amajiri system in the north? Why are we not addressing the issue of insecurity the way we are supposed to address it? Look at the killings in the country. There's a report that shows that between when this government came to office and now, over 50,000 Nigerians have been slaughtered. This is a report commissioned by a body funded by the US government. So it's a credible organization. Why are we not having that conversation? Why are the candidates not telling us in clear language what they would do differently regarding Boko Haram? If there is a government that has given the parties the leverage, the opportunity to clearly articulate what they are supposed to do, it is a Buhari government. Because of that, today, even to acquire, to buy egg, is difficult. Gari is difficult. Rice is difficult. Basic commodities are not available. These are the issues that affect the common people. Look at fuel subsidy. Look at fuel subsidy. The candidates some of them have said, well, they will abolish subsidy, there will be no subsidy, but who is telling us what will be done with the money stolen over the years in the name of subsidy? Right. Because even the president, Buhari, told us that subsidy was a fraud. 8 years later, they are still paying billions in subsidy.
Trillions, actually.
Trillions in subsidy. Without accountability, Nigerians cannot have fuel. These are the issues that political parties should speak to. How come that trillions have been dissipated for subsidy and we cannot see fuel to buy?
So you made a valid point. You said something that there should be some sort of presidential act or some
presidential
sort of
debate act.
It's Presidential Debate Act. And it's funny, as much as that is very idealistic, these are the same people that came in through a particular process, and you expect them to come together and make a law. Obviously, you know that very recently there were some electoral acts that were passed. I'm sure that if we check, there should be something, or there should be a law, or there should be a body that is in charge of sort of serving as a control to such acts by candidates, be it presidential or otherwise, right? There should be a body or there should be a law currently existing. I think the issue would be how it's implemented, because I'm sure that if you look at some of these speeches critically, you can even categorize some of them as hate speeches, and I'm sure there are laws against such speeches. So why is it that nobody has been held accountable so far so good during this campaign season?
The truth of the matter is that and let me start by stating clearly that we have what is called the Nigerian Election Debate Group. As a matter of fact, during the last presidential election, I had to file a case in court at the FCTI court against this body over the exclusion of Sowore from the presidential debates last year. So I know that there is a body, but that body doesn't have legislative backing. It doesn't have the force of law. They cannot compel anybody. And why are we not having debate this year? Because the candidates, the elephants in the room, in quotes, they have refused to participate in the debates. Even some, candidates are even quarreling with media houses for trying to invite them. So we need a law in place. There is no argument about that. Let a member of the National Assembly introduce the bill. Let us know who is voting for it and who is voting against it. It will be documented in history. But I do agree that if you look at our Electoral Act, if you look at the Constitution, if you look at the INEC guidelines, there are regulations, there are policies that have been put in place to checkmate campaign financing, to checkmate even the messaging, political messaging. If you look at under the Electoral Act, it is an offense to campaign on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of religion. But we see candidates do this every single day. We see political parties and their supporters engage in this blatant attempt to divide the population without consequences. Again, that brings me to the issue of the Electoral Offences Tribunal. We need to ensure that the Electoral Offences Tribunal bill is passed. The bill is currently, lying wallow in the House of Reps. The Speaker has not done anything about it. We need an Electoral Offences Commission. Because if that commission is in existence, it will have the obligation under the law to checkmate the activities of candidates, the activities of political parties, prosecute those who violate these laws, hold them accountable for the betterment of the Nigerian people. But today, I can tell you authoritatively that INEC lacks the institutional mechanism, the institutional capacity to checkmate what political parties are doing. INEC is already overwhelmed. Look at even pre-election matters that INEC has to deal with, monitoring the primaries of political parties. They still have to be responsible for the National Register of Voters. They have to register people. Look at how INEC has failed in distribution of PVCs. So when we keep there's so much responsibility on INEC.
Yes.
Which is why we need an independent body to ensure that regarding electoral offenses, those who violate our law, whether in terms of campaign, whether in terms of election financing, which nobody is talking about. Nobody is talking about election financing. That there is a law in Nigeria, the Electoral Act, that has stipulated the maximum that candidates and parties are supposed to spend, where candidates are supposed to get funds from. Who is monitoring these things? And these are the issues that matter. But my position is for the Nigerian people, particularly the youths. If you look at the turnout, the percentage of registration.
More youths.
More youths. We have
so how do we ensure that, because it's one thing to have a lot of youths, it's another thing to make sure that the youths actually come out. It's another thing to give them a level of clarity, right? Because with everything that is going on, we lack issue-based campaign. A lot of people will be moved with sentiments, be it religion, be it ethnicity. So how do we provide clarity to the Nigerian youths, not just in fact, the entire Nigerian electorate? How do you think clarity can be provided, even if those candidates are not campaigning based on issues? How can the electorate ourselves, because we're all suffering, we're all suffering in this country altogether. So how can we provide clarity to the electorates to make sure that they end up voting for somebody that would eventually take us out of this mess?
I think it was Winston Churchill who said that a nation without a conscience is a nation without a soul, and that a nation without a soul cannot survive. The conscience of the Nigerian nation is being put to test in this election. If you look at where we have come from in the last 7 years, and even before now, before this government, the penury, the anguish, the suffering that the Nigerian people have had to endure, that the youths have had to endure. Students were at homes for over 8 months on account of ASUU strike. Market women are suffering all over the country. Traders are suffering all over the country. So people must realize that this is one election of a lifetime. This is one election of a lifetime. If we do not get it right now, when are we going to get it right? It is for us as citizens to begin to take our civic responsibility serious. Because at the end of the day, we can chastise, we can criticize our leaders from now till eternity. If the citizens do not exercise the power that they have to vote the right people into positions of power, we will continue to suffer.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Young, and do have a lovely day.